You're listening to China Africa Talk.
Jambo, ni Bridget akikuletea kipindi kinachohusiana na China na Afrika.
Vous écoutez le dialogue sino-africain avec Bridget.
Everything China, everything Africa.
Olá, você está ouvindo China Africa Talk com Bridget.
سيداتي وسادتي مرحبا بكم في الحوار الصيني العربي مع بريدجيت.
Welcome back to the program. This is China Africa Talk. I'm Bridget Mutambirwa, and I bring you discussions on what's happening with China and Africa from a Chinese and African perspective. On July 29, Beijing became a magnet for young people from nearly every corner of the globe. The World Youth Conference for Peace, held at the prestigious Peking University, brought together more than 3,000 young delegates from over 130 countries across 5 continents. These individuals were united by a common vision: peace and cooperation.
We do not want to live in a world with danger, war, and conflict. Peace is agreed by most of the youth from Africa and China.
When we empower young people with skills, with trust and platforms, we don't just talk about peace, we begin to live it.
Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a message to the conference calling on young people to champion the vision of peace and contribute to peaceful development and building of a community with a shared future for humanity. Meanwhile, the 5th China-Africa Future Leaders Dialogue has also gathered young leaders to discuss how youth can promote peace building and green partnerships. So what role can young people play in shaping a more peaceful and sustainable world? I'm now joined by 2 young people who took part in these events. Nsoaki Agnes Matella, 3rd Secretary at the Embassy of the Kingdom of Lesotho in China, and Wang Gang, a PhD student at Tsinghua University. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Bridget. Great honor for me to join China Africa Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I know both of you have been very busy over the past few days. You were together in a youth program and attended the World Youth Conference for Peace. Maybe I'll start there with you, Gang. This year's World Youth Conference for Peace focuses on the theme Together for Peace. As a participant, what messages or concerns were raised by youth, and what does this theme personally inspire in both of you? So I'll start with you there, Gang.
So last 2 weeks, I joined the 5th China-Africa Future Leaders Dialogue, and I went to Tsinghua City in Zhejiang Province in China with several friends, youth from Africa, and then we shared a very good time in Beijing, and we ended all the activity. I attended the World Youth Conference for Peace, and this conference is also one of the activity in our Future Leaders Dialogue.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So in that conference, what impressed me most is that Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a message to the conference and stressed that the future of peace lies with the youth, and voicing the hope that young friends from all the countries take this event as an opportunity to exchange our ideas and enhance our mutual understanding and build our friendships. Personally, I think peace is very important to us, and we do not want to live in a world with danger, war, and conflict, because especially for youth from China and Africa, both history suffered the colonialism. So I think peace is agreed by most of the people from Africa and China.
Okay. Nsoaki.
Thank you so much. During this year's World Youth Conference for Peace, this theme, Together for Peace, it was more than a slogan. It was a shared vision voiced by young leaders from both China and around the world, basically. Because as much as I was part of the China-Africa Future Leaders Dialogue, from this World Youth Conference for Peace that we attended, I realized that there were whole lots of youth around China, of which all of them shared one vision, which was Together for Peace.
Right.
So youth from across our continent, which is Africa, raised heartfelt concerns about the persistence of violent conflict of poverty, but most importantly, of youth unemployment.
And I guess when there's no employment, there's no peace.
Yes, peace. So many African participants emphasize that root is the cause of instability, like the inequality, poor governance, and the lack of opportunity. All of us agree that must be addressed, to build lasting peace.
That's right.
The Chinese youth, though, on the other hand, they often shared how national development, education, and the culture of harmony contribute to the stability in their own country. And they expressed a desire to support Africa in building similar foundations. I think in all the visits, we went to different places. We learned and we realized that the developments that people would see as small are really playing a big role in the national peace. When we were in Jinhua, we visited a village called Lizu.
All right.
I'm not really good with pronunciations, but the village showed just how much when people come together with a common goal, they can do it. Do you understand? Which still leads me back to the theme together for peace. When people are working together on one thing, at the end of the day, we are all peaceful.
A lot of times when people think about peace, we're thinking about, hostilities, violence. People don't always see it as something that's out of the war zone. So it's interesting that you observed and highlighted some of these issues. In China's context, Gang, how do you view the role of youth in promoting a culture of peace?
Okay, so in traditional Chinese culture, peace is a very important value. And we have an old saying that peace is priceless. When I was a kid, I was taught how important peace is. So I think the Chinese youth should inherit this kind of culture, and we can use more inclusive mind and open mind to make friends with the youth from other countries.
So what more is needed to ensure these efforts are sustainable and widely embraced, especially under the background of China commemorating the 80th anniversary of victory against Japanese aggression this year?
I think the governments, community, and the schools, they should provide more opportunities and platforms to let our youth deeply communicate with each other and learn each other's culture and history. That is to make the youth know that the peace that we have today is not very easy to get. So we should cherish peace today. This year is a very special year, as you mentioned, the anniversary of the victory Chinese people against the Japanese invasion. So I think in this background, Chinese youth should not only remember the unforgettable history, but also tell the world what Chinese people suffered in that history and let other countries that were in the World War II realize that the peace is from our ancestors' sacrifice. We should pay more attention to that. We need to work towards peace.
And Swaki, what further actions can be taken to strengthen peace-building efforts across Africa today?
So I feel strengthening peace building in Africa requires a shift from reaction to proactive solutions. First, we need to invest in education and economic empowerment for young people. I don't know if it's because I'm a young Musoto. Hence, I will always remind people that we are not powerless as young people.
Right.
We are the bridges. And when we share our stories and stand in each other's realities, we begin to shape a more peaceful future together. When youth have purpose and a path, they become builders of peace and not participants in conflict. Secondly, I think we need to involve youth in decision making.
Are you saying that the youth is not involved?
I feel like many conflicts continue because those most affected, which are the youth, are excluded from peace tables, a real platform for young voices to be heard, to be implemented, not just consulted. And I also think we should prioritize inclusive development and women, communities, and those marginalized groups, are part of the progress.
Why I was also asking that question is most of the times when we hear that there's a riot in some of these African countries or political clashes, it's normally the youth who are actually at the forefront. So
Yeah.
I'm still failing to understand that after all that, is it that maybe we're not involved? Maybe nobody really pays attention? I don't know.
When you look at the table where issues are raised and solutions are shared, there's no young person there. It's like a common thing whereby the young people, they're not consulted. As I said, we have to be involved. If we don't have that platform to share, how are we even going to help, As an effort, I was thinking also, the cross-border youth programs and partnerships like this China-Africa dialogue should be strengthened, something that is done more often. They allow young Africans to see peace building not just as a national duty, but as a continental or a global responsibility. You will just realize just how youth are smart and just how collectively they can bring solutions. I think in our countries, African countries, I believe they are youth programs, They are there and I believe they have been there. But I feel like maybe if we could invest more in them, because I believe they're not really that important. The solutions raised there are not really taken seriously. Sometimes could be underfunded, which could really just take away the spirit from the youth. If our people take these forums, these programs, these youth programs in our countries, so that when we come to a bigger one like this China Africa dialogue, it's not a new thing to us. But as we come here as the representative, we have something concrete that we are holding from our own programs, from our own countries. I will tell you that is one of the best peace building efforts in Africa that would really make sure that we are very peaceful.
Gang, China's active participation in United Nations peacekeeping missions across Africa demonstrates its commitment to stability on the continent. Now, how would you assess the impact of China's efforts so far?
I think China has contributed a lot in the peacekeeping around Africa, and China has always worked to keep the peace around the world. And in Africa, for example, Chinese peacekeepers went to South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and they helped to save the lives and improve the medical conditions in the countries. So I think China did a lot of actions to help the peace in African continent. If I assess the impact of China's efforts, I will say I'm really admiring Chinese peacekeepers' work. And I think nowadays there is still many wars and conflicts around the world, and Chinese peacekeepers will still work to their peace and save their lives. And also, I think the world should see what China has already done and respect their efforts and spread the spirit of peace.
Ntswaki, beyond peacekeeping, how do China's partnerships in infrastructure, education, and economic development continue to bring peace and stability in Africa?
China's development partnership play a powerful role in promoting peace in Africa. For example, China builds roads, they build power stations or hospitals in underserved communities in different countries in Africa. It's not just infrastructure. To me, that is inclusion. It's giving people a sense of being seen and connected, which directly reduces frustration
Yep.
and marginalization, which are two root causes of conflict. Through education, especially scholarships or this example that I learned about when I was in Beijing province, vocational exchanges. China equips African youth with tools to participate in the modern economy. And I've met several students myself, in China who plan to return home to launch startups in our own countries. They want to teach technical skills to our people. And that is how we build lasting peace. So as China helps to develop and partner in our infrastructure and educational economic development, that to me is saying this is a foundation for peace. That is how we build peace, and it's not just by ending violence, but it is by removing, the reasons that people fight in the first place. Unemployment, and people are just fighting. They are never peaceful, even around themselves.
A hungry man is an angry man.
Yes, definitely. When you're hungry,
You're
you'll be an
angry.
angry person. And an angry person is not peaceful at all.
No.
Yes, definitely. So, through education and these infrastructure developments in our country, that to me is saying there is no peace more than this one. This is friendship. This is unity. It's one nation being kind to another. And at the end, there is that a shared future. It's more like a sister relationship. So economically, initiatives like this one, Belt and Road,
Yes.
create jobs and they attract investment. And when people provide for their families and they see progress, that is peace and it is a lived reality. It is not just a hope. When a man is getting up every morning and is going to his work, and at the end of the month is bringing something to the table, I believe you that family is very happy.
Okay, Gang, you are soon heading to Zimbabwe for a cultural exchange, and you've engaged in several youth led China Africa initiatives. After spending time with African peers during the fifth China Africa Future Leaders Dialogue, do you see these people to people exchanges as part of a new model of peacekeeping, one that emphasizes cooperation, development, and a shared future beyond traditional conflict frameworks?
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, because people-to-people exchange can help us to learn each other better and to respect each other and to understand each other, especially for people from China and Africa. People-to-people exchange can help us to realize that we have the common history and in after World War II, China and the African people, we are both struggling to get the independence. We are both fighting against the colonialism. So I think people-to-people exchange can help us to know each other, and in the dialogue, we can know each other better. We can cooperate, and we can work to development. So I think people-to-people exchange, it should be a new model of peace building today.
Zaki, during the dialogue, you also explored green development in China?
Yes.
I'd like to know, in what ways do you think China and Africa can strengthen green cooperation?
Okay. So during our visit, we visited a place called Intelligent Precision Manufacturing Park. We also visited a village I mentioned earlier, Ilizu village, and it showed that green development in China is not only advanced, it's people centered. What stood out for me was how China is integrating environmental sustainability with poverty alleviation and youth entrepreneurship. That model is deeply relevant to Africa, To strengthen green cooperation, I think we can begin by launching joint pilots projects, solar energy storage systems in Africa that are powered by Chinese technology, but maintained locally by our trained youth, because we have trained youth.
Yes.
They study and they have qualifications. So if we launch this joint pilot projects like this one in our different, rural Africa, with the Chinese technology, I will tell you, we will definitely bring something up. And our youth, they are trained, our locally trained youth, they are capable of maintaining that. So China's investment in vocational education for green skills is something we should also mirror and co-develop. Africa must be empowered to define its green priorities, not just receive technologies. So, setting up platforms where African youth can co design green solutions with Chinese counterparts
Yeah.
would ensure that this cooperation is sustainable and locally driven, I'm telling you.
Now, this question I'm going to ask both of you is there. I'd like to know, what are your main takeaways from the fifth China Africa Future Leaders Dialogue, and how has it shaped your views on the role of youth in building peace and green partnerships between China and Africa?
I think I learned a lot from this activity. And first, I think I learned better about Chinese experience in rural revitalization because during the dialogue, we went to Jinhua city in Zhejiang province and we visited the place which is called the Common Prosperity Belt. And that makes me to learn better about what China has achieved in making people become richer and making people become revitalized in rural area. And also during that time, I had a very deep communication with African youth. We cooperated in the group and we finished a project which is about the wastewater recycling in a community in Ghana. We went to many places in rural areas, especially a place which is called the Common Prosperity Belt. And in that place, I saw how people became richer with their own efforts. So I think that makes me to realize that China has a very good experience that can share with the world about the rural revitalization. During the fifth China Africa Future Leaderships Dialogue, I got a lot of inspirations. I also communicated with them, and that promotes my understanding and learning about Africa. So, first, because the future of the relationship between China and Africa depends on we youth. So, we have to realize that we have to take the responsibility to build our shared future. And second, I think youth are the communicator because we both are very curious about each other and we want to know much about each other's culture, each other's thought, and each other's thinking about what we want to have in the future, what we want to achieve in the future. However, because of the distance and because of the media, these factors set the barriers to us. But luckily, we have social media and we have many activities right now. So we can communicate with each other, share our opinions with each other, and strengthen our trust between each other. So I think based on these 2 points, we can promote and build the peace and the green partnerships.
The biggest takeaway is that the youth are not the leaders of tomorrow.
Okay.
We are the leaders of today. Yes, this dialogue showed me that China is listening and that our Africa is ready. I saw how young people from both regions are full of ideas of ambition and a real sense of global responsibilities. The dialogue also made it clear that green partnerships are not just environmental, they are social and economic too. We visited so many places, right, during this dialogue. And we also visited an institution, Tsinghua Polytechnic, that it has a branch in Rwanda, And so from those institutions to the green industrial parks that we visited, I saw that investment in young people and sustainability can go hand in hand. So I now believe even more strongly that youth-led diplomacy, youth-led innovation, and youth-led community development must be supported as part of national and international peace strategies. When we empower young people with skills, with trust and platforms,
Right.
we don't just talk about peace.
Right.
We begin to live it.
Wow. Gang and Swaki, thank you so much for sharing your insights and letting us know about your experiences during the last 2 weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Bridget. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Bridget.
Listeners, you can subscribe to our online newsletter on CGTN or Substack to get more insights on China-Africa relations. Just search China-Africa Talk. For now, it's goodbye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post it on social media or leave a rating and review. Thanks again. See you next time.